Oh, okay. So there hasn't been any kind of uh, well, there hasn't been people. You haven't been fired. The company hasn't been firing people or letting them go or anything like that. It's just been you've been trying to acquire more people to do the design work.
Yeah, we have been trying to get some people before the COVID actually.
Hmm.
But we don't want to rush it. Like we desperately need people, but at the same time we still wanted to find the right people instead of get someone who eventually doesn't fit. So that's why we're taking our time.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. That I guess it just depends on the company and the sector. So, um,
I think our company is actually doing pretty well, to be honest.
okay.
Like the second quarter numbers came out, seems pretty okay. And that's what I've been telling also my coworkers as well. Like I know that in this pandemic, like a lot of companies has like letting go people, but at least for me, the whole time I actually felt pretty safe in my company. I didn't have any feeling that they were going to let us go. I mean, it could still happen, but it's just the fact that at least that doesn't give the employees the feeling was already, I think, a pretty good thing to do. That can happen to us actually.
What is Software AG's like primary like what do they produce? Like what's their main industry?
Main industry. Oh, well, we are pretty much now heavily focused on IoT things and also all the different cloud products.
Yeah.
I would say the I can be a little bit wrong here, but at least from what I know,
Company
I think
representative is going to be watching this later, and you're going to be on the hook for not knowing what the company does. It'll put you in the spotlight, so you're in big trouble.
yeah, you know, this is recorded on YouTube, you know.
It is. It's streaming live, and we
and
have
then
that
and
one
then next you're
person.
gonna change the YouTube title to like software ages.
No, we don't do that. Remember, we had that whole thing we talked about them not associating with anything. So I'm actually like doing that bridge. So it's my fault. You can just say we make a lot of. You can make it very vanilla and go. We make a lot of interesting products here at Software AG.
Yeah,
Some
we
of them in
do.
the cloud, others are IoT. We're really advanced and innovative, and we're hiring today. So we're actually fielding the
Yeah.
pandemic much better. See, oh,
Yeah. I think we focus a lot on integration actually. Yeah. That's
hmm.
why they say like even though you may not have heard of our company's name, but if you are living in the world, you probably the chances that you somehow has any kind of touch point with our software. Like if
Yeah.
you ride a train, if you go fly a plane, or well, not now, but if you do those things, like if you use your credit card, like you, the chances that you may be using our software already that you don't even know.
Yeah, that was how it was for things like when I worked at AT&T a long time ago, that was the same thing. We had so many our hands in so many different types of APIs and system
Mm.
integration parts that whatever happened on the back end was seamless. And then from the front end, you were just basically experiencing like, I want to purchase this phone with this plan and do it this way and have these ads. And that's primarily where our focus was. So it's probably the same with what who you're representing. So okay.
Mm.
So this is
Yes.
almost like a what the hell happened last week episode because we were
Yeah, we're back to
if I wouldn't
that.
have if I wouldn't have gotten as busy as I did and put some focus on actually putting in some of the guests that we were thinking about doing this week, this would be a different episode altogether. But we're going to try to frame that for the upcoming weeks. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, this is really a recap of what's been happening with both of us. You know, that was so entertaining that we just kept on going with that idea for a while. Especially we're doing some live broadcasting from Austin earlier, but yeah. So seeing as I've been talking a whole lot in the past 2 or 3 days, I would love to hear what's going on in your world, what you've been observing in the design space, anything you've been paying attention to, and what you think the lottery numbers are going to be for tomorrow.
Lottery number. If I could have guessed that, right?
You
Yeah.
might as well record it now. So say the lottery number for tonight is going to be 635 or so some 3-digit thing. And then if you happen to be right, then you have a side career as being like a prophet of some type for like numerology.
I honestly, oh, that's the timer.
All right, Alden, your screen time's done. And if you can, do some work, please. It'll help give you some coverage, okay? Okay. So please, before the interruption, what were you about to say that was going to be groundbreaking, earth-shattering?
Oh, I just wanted to say that I don't even know what the lottery in Germany actually is called, because I never really buy it. So I don't even know what it's called. Personally, there are two big news for me recently. One is I adopted a dog, and the second is I bought an apartment in Germany.
Really?
So yeah, crazy, both crazy episodes, but yeah, it's done now.
Okay, so first, you buy, is it a bigger place?
No, it's a small one. I buy it for investment, so I'm buying it to rent it out, to generate some passive income. But the process of buying is just very hectic here, in Germany, because like in Canada, I think probably it's the same in the US. Like normally when you want to buy something, then you go to a real estate agency, and then you tell them what you want, and then this person will act your own behalf and search the whole market and try to find something that matches for you, and then you choose like whatever this person gave you, right? That's kind of the typical process. But in Germany, they don't even have that person here. So the real estate agents are solely acting on behalf of the seller. And they kind of like the seller approached the agency, and then it became their collections of apartments, like depending on how many sellers they have. And then I have to look for I will have to contact each seller in the whole area and see if they have their apartments that matches me. Of course, there's a portal that you can also look for it, but then because of the data privacy here, they will not even post the address. They will not even post like all the anything more, like how much is the rent and stuff like that. And you actually have to contact each person to ask like where is exactly is your is your apartment before. Yeah, so it's just like very hectic for me. But anyway, so it's all done now. I have got something, so pretty happy about it.
So are you saying this is going to be something that basically gives you passive income? You're going to rent this out to other people, or you?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just going to be some real estate, small piece of real estate you're going to own. And are you going to actively manage it, or are you hiring somebody to manage it for you?
Someone will manage it for me. Yeah.
Okay, that's probably really prevalent here in Dallas too, especially in the environment that we're in. We have a couple of people that have properties where there's a third party that manages everything, and people rent those out. Their business, they're there for 3 months, 6 months, what have you, but they use that as an income stream as well.
Yeah, yeah. And apparently the banking, the mortgage stuff is actually really, really good in Germany, especially if you are a permanent German resident, or if you are like a passport holder of Germany. But for me, it was a little bit more difficult because I'm still not a permanent resident here. But if you were, then the bank will actually cover the whole apartment 100% for you. They will pay 100%. So you don't even really need any down payment. All you need to do is just pay for the fees for the realtor if they charge you, and also the tax of the land. That's about it. And the bank will pay 100%. So it's actually really great for investment that way.
Interesting. So would you just plan on continuing to do this as you're able to, like you would basically find other spots that seem to make sense to have passive income and own more real estate in Germany?
That's the plan, but we'll have to see. Have to wait until I get the permanent residence first, and then it will make much more sense. But now I just wanted to get something started here.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. And then your puppy that you got, what breed is it?
It's a mixed. It's a whole story there. So I wanted a small dog that can live in my apartment, because I have a really small apartment. It's just my preference. I don't like large space, but I want a small dog that quite not active in a way, because I know that I live in a small space. So if the dog needs a lot of exercise, then it's not really the best fit. So then I was looking on all the dog pictures, and then I found this dog, and then I contacted what's it called, the shelter, and then I asked about the dog. They say, oh, it's a great, it will be good for you because what they know is the dog is very quiet and calm, and it's good and very small. And then yeah, so the dog is not from here. It's from, I forgot the name of the country now. Close to Italy, so it's like 1,400 kilometers away from me. And then after I signed a contract, said that I would get the dog, so then they will ship the dog to me. Then they said that, well, it is. They transport the dog to me. and then
Okay, wait, stop. Wait, time out. Hang on. There's so many things in that very beginning that I have to ask. Okay. So you eventually were looking for the dog, and the one you decided on was in Italy, or was that the origin of
Italy? Close to Italy. I don't know the name of the country anymore. Yeah.
But you basically said, I'm 1,000 miles away and I want this dog. So can you ship it to me?
Well, it's like those adoption thing, right? So the thing is, like in Germany, a lot of people, they cannot find the dogs that they want, because like in Germany, you don't have stray dogs here. I have never seen one on the street. But in many different areas in Europe or countries in Europe, there are lots of like this stuff actually still happening, right? Like there's a lot of street dogs, and they would get killed, or I don't know. Yeah. So then there's a lot of the shelters, they would, like the animal protection stuff, they would try to bring the dogs across the border, so then the German people can adopt them, and then the dogs don't have to die in those countries. So that's the reason.
Okay. Yeah. So you got the dog, and it's a mixed breed, and it's a smaller dog.
Yeah.
Do you know what breed?
So the thing is, yeah, that's the thing. Like I didn't know what the breed is. I only look at the picture and it looks cute. And then, and then after I signed a contract and said that, okay, I will get the dog, please transport it over to the border to give it to me. And then I was curious, okay, what kind of mixed breed it is, right? And then so I used the Google image search and I upload a picture of him, and I found out that he's heavily mixed with like Jack Russell Terrier. I don't know if you know the breed, but they are known to be like the most active dog kind of in the world. They like to dig holes. They like to bark like crazy the whole time.
So is the dog there, or is it still in transit?
It's here now. Yeah.
Okay. So is it as advertised? Is he very active? Does he bark at everything and anything, or no?
He did in the first few days or so, but then I immediately figured out, okay, I have to take the week off to train her. So I know how to train dogs, so then that's what I did. But he still needs a lot of attention, and not attention, but he needs a lot of exercise. So that was something that I was trying to avoid, because I have a small apartment. But now I got him. They gave me 10 days to decide if I don't want the dog. I can still get someone to adopt it from me. But I mean, after you have the dog for 10 days, there's no way I would like. After I build a relationship, I can't give it back. So
what was the first thing the dog, when it first landed in the apartment, what did it do? Did it just basically sniff out its territory, figure out where everything was? If there was another dog there? Well, what was its behavior?
I think she is actually still pretty scared for small things. So I think the first day, if I remember correctly, like she was pretty still active, which is quite not normal, thinking like she just was transported in a car for over 10 hours, like, should be pretty tired and stressful. And normally what happens is when you get such a dog, they would lay down and try to do rest. But she was like going around in my whole apartment and already trying to, like, we tried to play with her and walk with her, and then she was like running around, and yeah. So it's like, that's it. That is a Jack Russell Terrier.
Yep. Plus, also, if you got to account to the fact that the amount of hours the dog actually spent with you is equating to the days of a human being, or the amount of time. So in dog years,
Yeah,
they
I
probably
know.
were in that place for about four human days, and they're like, I want
Mm,
to get the heck out of here and run around and kind of stretch myself. So yeah, and he's probably a bit
yeah.
timid about his environment because he's been shipped and kind of kept in a space all its own for so long that
Yeah,
now he's
yeah.
finally he's in
What's
a clean
crazy is so
apartment.
they drove across like I think four borders, I think if I remember correctly. And it was like in a those Volkswagen van. And then they list, so we were in a WhatsApp group, and then they list out all the dogs where they will be stopping, where they should pick up those dogs, and then we met in McDonald's to
Oh my
get the dogs.
goodness.
And then it was like I don't know, it was crazy. And then the list of dogs was like in total of 28 dogs. So they big and small. So they were like huge dogs and also smaller dogs. Mine is small, but there was also like a yeah, Labrador or something like they
I,
were
I would I
bigger
would hate to
dogs.
think that they got all 28 dogs out or whatever they had in their van and just put a bunch of cheeseburgers in front of them and say, all right, eat,
It's and
get your
go.
food in there. Here's a French fries. And they just like cleaned up everything. And then they went back in the
No.
van, and then they basically traveled to different places. Like their entire diet has been consumed on fast food on the road. And then when they eventually get into like an apartment, they have problems eating actual dog food because they're used to like fried foods. So
That would be terrible. But yeah. And then we had to like go like because it's not close by us. So they have their roads like where they want to drive, right? So it's actually they wouldn't come to the more middle of Germany or north side of Germany where I am. So we
mhm.
actually have to go down we had to go down to the South Germany to pick her up. And we had to meet there at like what was it, 6 o'clock a.m. So it's like 2 3 hours drive, two
Why does
hours
it
drive
feel?
from
Why
me.
does it feel like this is like an illegal operation of some
I know.
type? You have to travel 1,000 miles to get. They're going to deliver your dog. It's 1,000 miles away. They're going to cart them in 27 other dogs in the same space. They're going to meet you at 6 a.m. in front of a fast food restaurant to give you your dog, and they're going to go, savez, hey, here you go, and then it's great, and
Yeah,
you
no
really don't know
kidding. I
what
felt
you're.
like it was like, is that illegal? That what they do?
There's
But
a
they have all
microchip
that.
in a dog's neck where they're actually hiding like nuclear codes or something, so that your dog is actually like transporting illegal like material in different places. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Only if
Yeah,
your dog's
it was
speedy. But
interesting for me, the whole experience. Yeah.
I would say that I would be. That's a story for sure. So what's the dog's name?
Her name is Lucy. I don't know why, but when I first read the description, somehow I read the name as Lucia, Lucia. That's what I have been remembering, and I didn't like the name, and then I tried to rename her to something close, which is Lucy. But then after I got the dog, I looked at the documentation. Actually, her name is Luisa. So it
Hmm.
wasn't. It was something totally different. I don't know what happened to her, but now her name is Lucy.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. I'm sure it recognizes it. Better than calling it JR for Jack Russell and then having it being completely confused when you say JR. It's like, what? What?
JR,
What do you want?
come here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the dog. And that's why I've been like quite busy the last 2 weeks with all these two big things happening.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you have plenty of TikTok material if you ever get on there and just basically, oh, hey, here's JR or here's Lucy. Here
Yeah.
you go.
If I can
That's
ever
what you,
fix my TikTok.
well, you can't get on it?
No, still cannot. Yeah.
Really? You've been banned, shadow banned for life.
I changed my phone number and then they wouldn't let me log in anymore without my phone number.
You can't use an email address?
I could use my email address only to change my email.
Hmm. You can always do a fake email and basically just use that to start TikTok account as long as you remember what it is. Like, you can be sandylamb2 or something at gmail.com, but then it's just a matter of tracking too many things. So
No, they want my phone number so then they can send a code to me so then I can log into my account.
okay.
But I don't have the phone number anymore, so there's no way I can get the code. And then I tried to log in with my email address and then it wouldn't really log in, but it allows me to only change my email address on that account.
Maybe the Chinese spies don't see you as interesting. Maybe that's it. They already figured out what you're all about and said, no, okay, she can whisper to elephants and adopt dogs 1,000 miles away, but that's not really what we're after.
Yeah, it was Sunny. I don't know. I tried to contact them, but no reply whatsoever. So
Yeah, that's okay. They're not worth it. That's all right.
yeah.
So so if I to recap, you have a brand new dog, and now you are in the real estate business in Germany with finding places that you can have income streams and rent out to people, and you're going to become a mogul in less than 20 years, where you're going to have your own elephant sanctuary full of Jack Russell Terriers chasing them around, right?
Elephant Sanctuary with Jack Russell Terrier. How did you even come up with that?
I don't know. I just went there, just like, okay, like you're going to have like a huge elephant sanctuary. Your real estate's in Germany, you're going on 30% of it. You're going to have all these different commercial and like, single family homes all over the place. You just basically make like 20 million every month. And you just basically funnel that all to an elephant sanctuary you built yourself in like some remote part of Africa, and you're good to go.
That could be a dream.
Full of cameras, so that just like explore.org, you can basically see what's going on in the park at different places.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, there you go. Got it all figured out. Design is just a temporary stop into this entire world that you're going to be in when you're like in your 50s and
60s. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, enough about me. I know that you were super busy. So
yeah, watching a lot of Netflix is what I do. I just basically just zone out on Amazon Prime and just do nothing but streaming and watching and doing nothing constructive whatsoever. Yeah. Occasionally I'll find the time to actually do promotions for these when we have special guests, but yeah, my entire life is a fabrication. I just do nothing but watch Netflix all day.
And all that mastery program, it just does it by itself.
It's all a farce. It's all it's all a front. That's it. I just need the attention. Okay. In other news, we did. So here's what's going on with me, and I'll go professional and personal. So day 4 of the Dash was today, and we went through some of the granular aspects of the prototyping process. We showcased a few tools to measure the effectiveness of the experiments, and actually went into a few things that other people have done, like Graham had shown us kind of a visual rendering of Bayes' theorem. We went into like another, I can't remember the other visual we had early on, but we did a lot of dialogue. So the first part of the week kind of went through the motions to go through the exercises. But just like the previous week, we started doing more dialogue about interpretation, expectation, what made sense. So we were designing on the fly. And the idea is that between today's session and tomorrow, I'm going to go back to all 4 templates and take their suggestions in and redesign them, so that the presentation I'm going to make in the first part of the hour is based on what I've heard. Here's where the Dash seems to be now, and kind of frame that out completely, so that they can react to that. They can basically go, this looks thick, or what about this, or what about that? So that's the intent for day 5, is to just kind of summarize all the learnings and all the perspectives that people have had, and show people that I've been listening and that I understand what they were talking about, or that I'm a terrible listener and that that I should just basically start over and never do this again. So there's that. Then there's the mastery program, where I realized that with the teams that I brought together for the individual learning, that was a misstep, because I think I needed to do the group learnings first to kind of arrange those, figure out what people wanted to learn. And then the individual learnings kind of came from that naturally. So now that we've done about 7 sessions, going into 8 after I get done with remotely interesting, we pick out topics of discussion that people want to explore in the next couple of weeks together. We kind of rank them in terms of what people are most interested in, and then we set up WhatsApp groups for chatting. We're going to have a doodle to figure out availability next week for a half-hour optional check-in. But all of the learning is meant to be passive or asynchronous, so that people are going to first gather topics and gather information for learning, and set an agenda for the next 2 weeks. So that the following 2 weeks is going to be all about going through the motions, executing, doing the activities, and coming to some sort of outcome that they can tangibly use to promote themselves or learn more about the product, about their topic. Now, it may last longer than 2 weeks. That's totally fine, but we're trying to shoot for that time frame to see what happens. So that's at least what's happening with those two major efforts. Then I believe I'm on day 64 of my 100-day running spree that I'm documenting on TikTok. Daniel Hara found me, found that stream there. And it really is just me being a sweat ball at like 11:30 at night, basically
I watched a
videotaping
few
myself
of
going,
those.
yes. So they're not as entertaining as it would be if somebody dancing to something else or seeing a sports clip of somebody getting massacred. So obviously on the entertainment scale, I'm at the very bottom of the totem pole. But it's interesting for me because they've morphed. The nature of those have morphed into like, okay, I'm running, but this is what happened today. And in a way, it's a digital diary of what happens on my side of things. So it can be like what happens with the dash. It could be what happens with my son. It could be all sorts of stuff. Like since yesterday when Daniel asked me, what was your starting weight? I didn't measure it. So I thought, okay, every 10 at the 70, 80, 90 mark, I'm going to ask people, how much am I going to weigh at 100? What do you think I would weigh? Given if you see this face and you see the kind of like what you would reject, and I'm expecting people to say 400, 350, 290, and just basically make a big joke and troll me and stuff like that. But at least I'm getting a reaction. So there's that. And then just generally in Texas, things are still in lockdown. They're not going to do any in-person teaching. The soccer stuff that we normally do is off. I mean, pretty much it's almost waiting till the level of denial kind of flattens out a bit, where people are going to have to experience either the sickness itself or somebody they know gets sick or somebody dies from COVID for this to really start hitting home. And I think as more people in power start getting affected by it, the more you're going to start seeing Texas start being serious. Because originally the idea is that they were opening up the economy, everything was going to be great, doesn't affect young people at all. All of that's been thrown under the bus because essentially it does affect young people. It affects kids just as well. The thing is that people, they don't die from it, but they have long-term health effects because of it. True, it doesn't as prevalent outside because the evidence suggests that it doesn't survive outside; it survives inside. Like it propagates inside more or less. But the idea that you're somewhat immune because of your classification of who you are or how young you are is simply misguided. And you can get it multiple times, especially if you're in the viral environment that you are. So
you're not immune after you get it.
you have a high antibody count. But the idea is that just like you did when you first got it, if you are around the virus a lot, it can reinfect itself. Like if you can be reinfected by it. Maybe not as bad, but here's the thing: it's not whether you live or die; it's the amount of damage it does. Since it's a blood clotting disease,
what I've heard too.
It's a blood clotting disease at its nature. So it's not necessarily just going to affect the lungs. It affects like blood passageways, anything that has a blood vessel in your body. It's going to basically affect it in some way, or while it's in your body, it may affect it, but the long-term ramifications are you can't work out as well. You have problems. You have problems either like with your senses. There's evidence now that it affects the brain because of the way that the brain can kind of like take on the virus and how it manifests there. I mean, the more we learn about, the more the evidence, the more that you don't want to even take a chance and go down that route. But here in Texas, people have their own idea about what they want to do. And I think other countries that are open or that at least know what they're doing have a better attitude and approach to this. Outside of politics, outside of belief, it is what it is. The virus is either going to get you or it's not, based on how careful you are. And not many people are still subscribing to that.
So how do you get your daily supplies? Are they all closed now? Or?
No, they're still coming in. Early on when it first came in, everyone was hoarding stuff. So getting like wet wipes or anything was next close to impossible because everyone was like, I'm going to sell it online for 3 times the amount. Or they just didn't have any paper towels, but we have plenty stacked in our garage. It's just that we haven't seen anything on the shelves where the things are like as barren as they were before. I think people are taking enough precautions so that the essential workers, so to speak, or the essential like system, like the things are still in place and it's still being done. But in the United States, individual states, with some states starting to ramp up now and other states that are declining because there's more of a recognition on the social level that there needs to be more precautions done.
Are you allowed to drive across states?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't stop you in certain states. They do stop you from traveling internationally because the US is considered a hot zone for the COVID virus. Between that and Mexico and South America, anything that has authoritarian rule and doesn't really transparent about how badly this is affecting people, yeah, then you have restrictions. But in terms of the states, no, not so much.
Yeah, because I think like when we were in the lockdown in Germany, they actually restricted also traveling across the states, and you can get fined if you have your license plates from another province or other states, parking other parking lots, and they can ticket you unless you have like a really some kind of valid reasons that why you really have to go there.
Yeah, it's starting to morph into kind of a dumbass rule. If you're somebody that's just not thinking about what you're doing and you're kind of ambivalent or ignorant of what's going on, I think the rules that are going to be set into place in some areas are going to adversely affect those types. I mean, right now we're pretty open-ended about who can do what, but I sense that in Texas, there beyond the mandatory mask rule that's come into effect in the past couple of weeks, you're going to see more restrictions around people who have who are in high risk areas, people who are overweight, people who are very old. And just if they see people that don't follow certain protocols, there's people that are going to be actively telling them you need to kind of be in this space. And they can self-elect to say, no, we're going to do this and whatever. But I think there's going to be something where the state is going to move in and say, look, we're going to have to give you a ticket, or we're going to have to fine you for this because you're a health hazard at this point, where your behavior is going to start having there's going to be a penalty for certain behaviors that just don't make sense, especially if in certain places in Texas, certain towns, there's just this huge wipeout of like people's health and death and everything else. And join towns are going to start going, you know what? We don't want that. But it's got to be a recognition of the fact that this is this dangerous. And right now it's not there. It's just now it's just a number for most people. And yeah,
but I think that's really natural human behaviors, right? Like, when you hear all these stories and things like that, like seeing the numbers, unless you actually know someone close to you that is affected, you almost feel nothing in a way.
Yeah. It's the people who are curious like me that want to go, well, how bad can it be? You ask that question, then you go out and you do searches for YouTube or Vimeo videos of people that have been self-made and other things, where they actually take pictures of them in a hospital bed with the ventilator saying, look, this is who I used to be. I used to be like a track star and everything else. And I went to like a spring break thing and I thought I was immune to it. And I've relapsed twice. And it's one of those things where it's like, no, I don't want that for myself, my kid, my relatives, nothing. But people aren't there yet mentally. And it's one of those things where you're either cognizant of the consequences, or you have to learn it. You have to learn the hard way. It's like anything else, I guess.
Yeah. I remember before I watched a video from a guy on Instagram, and it was a young kid actually. Well, I don't know, I call it a kid, but he was saying like how he was suffering and then trying to get to the hospital, but they said like your symptom is not dangerous enough to go to the hospital, stay there. And then he explained, not explained, but he was like describing how bad he felt, couldn't breathe and all that. And then in the end of the video was like this guy actually died after. So yeah, that was quite hard to watch actually, I felt.
There's also the thing that they're most intriguing are the people that have COVID, are asymptomatic, but then they at their health checkup, they find that they actually have damage to what that's been done. Like the virus didn't really catch hold, but still the lasting damage. Like one person had like their stomach lining completely like mottled. When they did like examinations and stuff, they saw scar tissue that was running the gamut all along the side, right where the small large intestine was, because he was having problems actually eating. So it's like, why take a chance with that stuff? I just don't get it. I just don't get it.
Yeah, but that's can't control everything.
Yeah. So on to cheerier news besides death and disease and everything else. I'm playing in the virtual design sprint space. I'm getting into prototyping, and I'm kind of the opinion that we're headed to an area where there's going to be more activity in the exploration phase of testing new ideas in the market, or at least I'm kind of edging towards that. I'm doing less with design sprints, but I'm still teaching it for people that want to know. From your standpoint as a systems designer and somebody that's been in the space a while, where do you see everything kind of heading? I mean, do you think it's going to be status quo? People are going to still explore design sprints and design thinking is still going to be there? Or do you start to see something on the horizon where there's going to be more of an emphasis?
I think design sprint is becoming almost like a must-have kind of skill. It's like, I mean, we're not there yet, but I think soon it's almost like a thing that you don't even need to mention. You know, like I want to make an analogy, but I don't know if it's the right one. Like, you know how Microsoft Word came out or Office came out, and then we actually would put Microsoft Office in our resume. You know, like we know how to use it. And then later on, like it's a joke when you put it on there because it's assumed that you already know that, right? So I think design sprint is turning into something like that. Yeah, there's a lot of people that I didn't expect that they even know about it, but then they actually know, and it's just like nothing special that they would even need to talk about. And that's what I see that is heading.
I almost think that it starts to come down to like UX did. UX was seen as a differentiator in certain places where if you had proper UX, then your products would be accepted more. Now it's just assumed you're going to do it. And part of the conversations in the sessions this week has been people are going to start to assume that you know design thinking, that you know sprints. Sprints is one of those things that is really works if you have certain things at play, like everyone's who's knowledgeable and stuff. And I've been telling people not to try to go down the route of selling virtual design sprints as a primary service for clients, because our economy globally is about to take a major shift in the wrong direction because of just like, generally speaking, more industries are kind of going to feel the burn of not being able to take it, like not because of COVID are kind of restricted in what they can do. Not all industries are like that. But there are some that are just seeing, like I keep hearing about like planned cuts, planned layoffs. They've been through a ton already. They're going to do more. You have to really, really target and have a niche market for what you want to do.
Like America based? Because I haven't actually heard much about that in here.
It's true. It could be a bit just based in America, but there are international ones that are also like, I don't know if the second quarter GDP came out for the US. I don't know when that's due or if it did come out. In fact, I should look it up while I'm thinking about it, and see if whether it was as bad as they thought it was going to be. I don't know if it was released yet. So it says that, it came out today. So second quarter GDP came out, and it says that they're projecting that it was 35%, but the rate said it was 32.9% in terms of like the GDP. In the first quarter, it was 5%. So even before the virus, it was kind of declining. But this one isn't as bad as they thought, but it definitely indicates that there was a major shift in the GDP for the US on what they were doing. But yeah, it's the worst GDP on record. There's a lot of like sub data that they're coming out with, like unemployment claims and other things. But it was the previous record was 10% in 1958. So this is historic that when that came out. So yeah, it's bad. The question is how bad will it be in the third quarter? And it's not going to be as bad, but it's probably going to be it's going to provide the impetus for people to say, are we now in a depression, or are we in a declination that's temporary? And we don't know yet. But in all indications, we started our decline at the beginning of the year, and because the pandemic just accelerated everything, and everything just dropped. So businesses are rehiring. There are some industries that are getting back on their feet, but yeah, it's just bad.
I think some fields are better than the others.
Yeah, I agree. So it's not all gloom and doom.
Hey, I have a question actually.
I'm listening.
I I was just having a discussion with my coworker, shifting the topic a little bit, about remote collaboration. And we were just saying, how remote collaboration, we try to, especially when you're working with international team, you will try to leverage asynchronous communication or collaboration as much as you could because of the time zone difference. But that becomes very, very passive. Like if the person doesn't want to engage or doesn't feel the need to engage, there's no way that you could be like knock on the door and ask questions so that they can really answer you. Versus if you were in the office, you can also always like knock on the door. Oh, I asked you that question, but you haven't answered me. Can you answer me now? Like that kind of, I don't know what you call it, like really enforcing it so then you can get your response or get the person to yeah, I don't know, like if there's any way that we can really bring almost like the in-person kind of engagement more into the asynchronous communication if the personality of the person is not really into that.
I mean, I could see a day where the emphasis on video is going to go away. I think what's going to fall back to what we traditionally have done with voice, where we don't need to look at one another to have a conversation about different things. So you can consider WhatsApp or Slack or something else being a conduit for communicating what they need to know. And then everything that's a decision-making process, it requires video or involves like being able to show that somebody's there. I still think that I'm of the camp that the camera's always on rule and the ability to see somebody is going to be de-emphasized in the coming months. I think there's going to be an open question as to what the value is in doing that beyond seeing what people's lives are like on the other end of the screen.
So what I'm trying to say is that, like, for example, like when we have a question, really general question, I'll just use like a scenario example, like for example, when we finished our team call, and then maybe I forgot something and I wanted to ask the team, okay, I forgot this question. Can you just answer me on the message? And then you will see like nobody wants to answer you for the next couple hours or even the next day. And then you have to ask again, and then you have to ping each person individually to get your answer. But versus if this was happening in an office in person, then you can just say, oh, I forgot something. I knock on the person's door or go to the cubicle, whatever, and say, oh, I forgot this question. Can you answer me? And then you will get your answer right away. But because of remote, there's not that possibility anymore. And it's really relying on individuals to choose if they want to engage with you or not.
Yeah, that's just part of the virtual experience for the most part. You can't force people to respond to you unless you make it clear that part of the communication like norm is that there's a response that needs to be had during the same business day if it's done before noon or some understanding. But yeah, you can't really force people to kind of respond if they don't. You can basically. I've come into situations even when I was working long ago for a company, for like a marketing agency, where I would send out an email or I'd send out a communication and I'd get nothing. And it wasn't because they were ignoring me. It was because they were way too busy and they just de-emphasized it. And until I either put caps in things or I said that these deliverables are dependent on whether or not you were going to respond to this, where there was actually a consequence to not responding, did there start to be some reaction to it? Or like, well, your original question wasn't clear. What exactly are you asking for? So sometimes it's a matter of the process where people aren't paying attention, and other times it's just individuals that are just way too focused on other things. So part of it is the immediacy and the focus of what needs to be done.
Yeah, but I just don't know how we can really make it better in a way, because like the team would be super engaged when we are connected online together. Like everyone is super engaged. They would communicate. They would they would put in their input, give you their input. But then almost like at the moments that you get off the call, you almost like you don't get any response from them anymore. And I just find it very hard to keep the engagement going unless you put it as almost like a team rule that you have to do it, but which I try to avoid.
Yeah.
Um,
Because then you
yeah,
have to go into the why. Why do they have to be so, you have to
yeah,
be so strict about certain things?
yeah.
Yep.
So we also were like brainstorming and was thinking, would that be a way? But I don't know um, how it's gonna work. But we were just thinking like maybe we just like keep connecting a few hours or whatever per day. Doesn't mean that you have to really engage with us, but at least we are connected on camera, or at least connected on a team call. But you can still do your own thing and work on your own. It's almost like you are still sitting with people in office. Doesn't mean that you are talking with that person the whole time, but you're together. There was just one idea, and I thought it was quite interesting. I just don't know how we can, or if we should even try it.
Like a virtual workspace where people would have their camera on and you can just basically have them available if you need to reach out to them.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I've heard like arguments both ways. Like they're fine with having cameras on because they don't pay attention to them, and they're fine with being pinged. But it's that focus that focus switching or that task switching that tends to break down people's productivity. So they may not opt for that. And the other is privacy. They just don't want a camera on all the time even though some companies have advocated for that, where you have to have your camera on to basically be available, to prove that you're available. And there's been so many people have been making their own videos to show that there's actually movement going on when they're not there.
Yeah,
And
I've seen
they're
that too.
yeah. So yeah, I think it has to do with setting expectations up front around how this could work and what you're expecting. And then as long as the other party or people are comfortable with that, then you can try it out. Sometimes it's just a matter of trying out the experiment to see what seems to work for each individuals, and making recommendations based on those results is one way of going about it.
Yeah, always experiment and literally.
Yeah, or at least trying new stuff. I mean, that's the way to learn. I was hearing, just real quick, I was listening to someone, I don't remember where it was, but about how the brain works and how you learn things as an adult, and how immediacy and focus, or urgency and focus, are the ingredients for kind of being able to learn something new. And then as long as it's something where you have an intrinsic motivation to do so, your brain plasticity actually like takes on new information and new topics much easier, like you were when you were much younger. But you have to have that urgency and focus.
But how do you create that urgency and focus?
Some of it's artificial. Sometimes it can be where you like I can't remember what it was. Like there was something where you create the physical circumstances where you give yourself a time frame of like 24 hours. You have to learn something, or there's something vital about it. So you add an element of stress where you force your body to kind of produce the right chemicals for that to take place. They recommend things like ice baths and other things to prepare for things. Now that you take an ice bath before you're innovative, but there's certain chemicals you can also take to kind of like bring this state of learning into being. And I don't have the exact details, but I caught it when I was running, going, "This is interesting. You can actually have like higher plasticity when you're older, given the right kind of scenario, like the right kind of stimulants or environment to work within." That's it.
I'm thinking about how.
Yeah.
Mm.
All
I
right. So
also
let's go ahead.
yeah. No,
No.
I was just saying that I also read a book, or not read, but I listened to a book before, saying like how people also learn in a certain environment, and if you could recreate the environment again, then you will remember the stuff better in a way. Like if you learn the things, I don't know, in an office, and then if you create that office again, and then you will remember things better.
So you recreate the environment, and that produces like a similar memory that basically like, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Like you're kind of
Yeah.
recreating it? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll have
Like
to
if
say
you,
we'll have to kind of investigate it and bring it up at another time when brain plasticity comes up in the conversation. So to recap, we talked about the brain, we talked about coronavirus, we talked about real estate in Germany, being able to be a real estate mogul, the dash, the mastery program, doing 100 days of running and figure out where that goes. So any other topics that I missed? Did we kind of touch upon anything else?
and my doggy.
And your doggy, your JR, your
Yeah.
Lucy, that you got
Yes.
from 1,000-mile
Yeah.
adoption. That was just the strangest thing. Picking up at a fast food restaurant, and
Yeah.
did they actually give you
at 6 a.m.
at 6 a.m.? Did they
When
actually
the
give you
dog
into
is-
like a plastic bag of some type, like they went to take out, and it's like, here he is, pops his head out. Where's the fries? You know.
It was completely strange. They had like because of the corona, I think, but I don't know. But it was like completely strange. They have like processing that you don't go out you go out the car, but you don't go to their truck yet or the van yet. You only when you hear the name of the dog, then you bring the leash and hang it on the mirror of the truck or the van. And then when their dog is ready, then the person will bring the dog and walk it to you. And then
How in the
now
hell
you
did
can
you
go
find it?
and meet them.
How did you find this adoption service in the first place? It's like, did they actually have this outlined on their website? We will call your name. You will have your leash. You will march
was
30
all-
feet.
Yeah,
We
it
will
was
send,
all
if the
written
dog
in
comes
the
to you, you
WhatsApp.
can keep it. If it doesn't, then it's to
Yeah.
choose between you and a burger on the ground or something.
It was really funny.
It's
Yeah.
strange.
Yeah.
But hey, if the end result is that you're very happy with your dog, then
Oh yeah,
good deal.
she's great. Yeah.
Right.
Keeping her.
So on next week on Remotely Interesting, we're going to find out how Lucy's doing in Sandy's apartment. I'm going to see if I'm still alive from 7 more days of running, and we may even have a special guest if I can actually get my ducks in order and arrange for people to come by, whether it's the Teens for Change or the 00%,
Project
00%.
Project 100.
Yeah. So we'll have something for you to consider next week for sure. Otherwise, it's just going to be us talking and shooting the breeze.
Still great.
No, I still like it. So it's always interesting. That dog story is pretty cool. So if you are watching on YouTube at a later time, or if you're still not on Zoom, because I didn't even put out the registration link. So if you watch this on watch this on YouTube at a later date, do leave us some comments. Don't spam us, but do ask us some questions, or just let us know what you like on a future show. We're open to suggestion. I think we're not too hard up on having we're not going to be talking nothing but dog adoption or anything else. So Sandy was going to have a conversation with you, and we'll see you next week. All right.
Yeah. All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.